They don't wear uniforms. They don't arrive on ships. And they don't fire a single bullet. But make no mistake, they're conquering nations. Not with swords, but with contracts. Not with bloodshed, but with bank accounts. In the modern world, the world's richest countries have discovered a new formula, one where control doesn't require occupation. It only needs desperation and a deal. From the sun-scorched fields of Zambia to the island ports of Sri Lanka, from lush farmland in Sudan to oil-rich zones in Venezuela, a new form of empire is rising. This empire is built not by colonizers in the traditional sense, but by global superpowers using money as their most powerful weapon. For most people, colonialism brings to mind a brutal past. British flags in India, European railroads, across Africa, and forced labor under foreign rulers. But what if it never really ended? What if it just changed shape? Today we are witnessing what many are calling economic colonialism. The evidence, it's hiding in plain sight. During the colonial era, nations like Britain, France, Spain, Portugal took over lands, enslaved people, and extracted resources. When independence waves hit in the 20th century, flags changed, but the imbalance didn't. Roads, ports, banks, and industries were all designed to benefit the colonizer. And after independence, those same nations were left with poor infrastructure, huge debts, and fragile economies. Fast forward to today, and you'll see the same countries, along with new power players like China, the United States, and the Gulf nations doing something eerily familiar. They're helping poorer countries through investments, loans, and development aid. But in return, they're quietly taking control of land. Ports, railways, agriculture, and even political decisions. Take Sri Lanka as a cautionary tale. In 2017, unable to repay a massive Chinese loan for the construction of Hambantota Port, Sri Lanka handed over a 99-year lease of the port to China. Just like that, strategic gateway in the Indian Ocean slipped under foreign control without a single shot fired. That's not just a deal, it's a power shift. Perhaps no country has mastered this new colonial model better than China. With its Belt and Road Initiative BRI, a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure project, China has invested in over 150 countries. Building highways in Kenya, ports in Pakistan, power plants in Cambodia, and railways in Central Asia. But there's a catch. Many of these countries are forced to borrow billions from China to fund these projects. And when they can't repay, Beijing gains long-term control. For example, Djibouti in Africa now hosts a massive Chinese military base near US installations, all thanks to debt-induced dependency. In Zambia, China owns significant stakes in copper mines and national electricity firms. In Laos, a Chinese-built, high-speed railway has come at a cost so large that the country essentially mortgaged its future earnings. Critics call it debt trap. Diplomacy. Supporters say it's development. But ask the locals living next to ports they no longer own, or farming land leased for 99 years, and you'll get a different answer. But China isn't alone. The United States, Europe, and multilateral organizations like the IMF and World Bank have been using a subtler strategy for decades. Through conditional loans, these institutions often demand policy changes, remove subsidies, privatize public services, open markets to foreign investors. While these policies are framed as economic reforms, they often make things worse for the local population. National industries collapse, foreign companies take over, and countries remain trapped in cycles of dependency. Take Argentina, which has had 22 loan agreements with the IMF since the 1950s. Each time, the country agreed to harsh conditions. Each time, its debt only grew larger. In essence, the rich countries lend money with strings attached, and those strings lead right back to them. In the heat-blistered deserts of the Middle East, water is more precious than oil. With rising populations and shrinking agricultural potential, countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar have looked outward to Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia for their survival. But what started as survival planning has become something far more controversial. Across Ethiopia, Sudan, Kenya, and Pakistan, these oil-rich nations are leasing or outright buying millions of hectares of fertile farmland, often for 99 years or more, and using that land to grow food exclusively for their own people. The locals, they don't get the crops. Often they don't even get jobs. In Pakistan's Balochistan province, vast tracts of land have been handed over to Gulf companies to grow alfalfa for export to UAE dairy farms. The same is happening in Punjab, where underground water levels are plummeting, not because of local farmers, but because of industrial-scale foreign operations. It's not just land, it's control of water tables, food supply, and livelihoods, all moving silently into foreign hands. One might ask, why would any government agree to this? The answer is both simple and tragic desperation. Cash-strapped governments, burdened by debt and corruption, often welcome foreign investment as a lifeline. Gulf states arrive with deep pockets, promising billions in infrastructure, employment, and prestige projects. But buried inside those agreements are quiet clauses, lease terms, tax holidays, control rights, and non-interference guarantees. By the time the public finds out, it's too late in Madagascar. A 2008 deal with a South Korean firm attempted to lease half the country's arable land for 99 years. The backlash was so intense, it led to mass protests and a change in government. But not all nations are that lucky. In some places, these deals are signed behind closed doors, and the people never know who owns the ground beneath their feet anymore. This isn't just investment. This is a slow-motion invasion done with contracts, not tanks. Let's be clear. Not all foreign investment is bad. Roads, ports, bridges, and airports are necessary for progress. But in many cases, these projects are not designed for the local population. They're designed for resource extraction and strategic control. Take the Lamu Port South Sudan-Ethiopia Transport Lapset Corridor, funded heavily by Gulf and Chinese investors. It's a massive project that stretches across Kenya. But locals in Lamu County say they've lost ancestral land, fishing rights, cultural heritage, all for a port where they won't be allowed to work. Or look at Gwadar Port in Pakistan. Funded by China under CPEC China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. The port is heavily guarded, fenced off, and largely inaccessible to local Balak fishermen. The irony? It's their coast, but they need permission to enter. Economic colonialism isn't always visible. Sometimes it's a highway you can't drive on, a port you can't use, a job you'll never be qualified for because it was never meant for you. In many poor nations, the true wealth doesn't lie in banks. It lies beneath the ground. Gold, oil, lithium, cobalt, the lifeblood of modern economies. And yet the people who live on top of these resources rarely benefit from them. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, over 70% of the world's cobalt, essential for electric car batteries, comes from mines run by foreign corporations, many of them Chinese. The locals, they mine by hand with no safety gear for less than sen a day. Children as young as 10 crawl through collapsed tunnels to extract minerals that will power luxury cars and smartphones in countries they will never visit. In Guinea, foreign mining firms are extracting bauxite to supply the aluminum industry. Vast forests have been destroyed, rivers poisoned, and yet villages nearby still have no running water. In South America, Lithium Triangle countries Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile are under increasing pressure from multinational companies. Hungry for the white gold that powers our batteries, the land belongs to indigenous tribes. But the decisions are made in corporate boardrooms far away. When people protest, they are labeled as anti-development. When journalists investigate, they are threatened. When communities resist, military or police forces, often trained or equipped by the very nations investing in these deals, are sent to maintain order. It's not just a loss of resources, it's the loss of power, identity, and future. Governments stay silent because they're afraid, or they've been bought, or they're trapped in debt. Foreign companies often sweeten deals with promises of jobs, hospitals, and schools. But most of these are short-term gains, while the long-term consequences are hidden in Mozambique. Massive gas projects brought hope, but also forced evictions, militarized zones, and environmental destruction. In Nigeria's Niger Delta, oil has made billions, but locals drink dirty water and live with constant pipeline explosions. The message is clear. Your land may be yours, but your future is for sale. And often those who resist the sale disappear. But this story isn't without hope. In several countries, a new generation is rising, educated, connected, and aware. Activists are demanding transparency. Movements are fighting back. In Kenya, courts stopped a Chinese-financed coal plant on environmental grounds. In Argentina, indigenous communities successfully halted lithium projects through international legal action. In Papua New Guinea, tribal leaders are challenging land deals signed without consent. Even in Pakistan, voices are rising against silent land takeovers in Baluchistan and Gilgit-Baltistan. These aren't just protests, they're calls for justice, for fairness, and for sovereignty. But the odds are still steep. Because the other side doesn't just have money, it has media, politics, lawyers, and armies of lobbyists. So the question is, in a world where contracts are stronger than borders, how do poor nations fight back? Every empire eventually faces resistance. Not because the people suddenly grow stronger, but because the pain becomes unbearable. As the world's richest nations continue to acquire land, control food supply chains, own vital minerals, and manipulate debt, a quiet rage is building beneath the surface. In Haiti, protests over rising fuel prices and IMF austerity have turned violent. In Sudan, bread and water riots brought down an entire regime. In Latin America, growing resentment against foreign mining giants has led to political upheaval. This isn't just about economics anymore, it's about identity, dignity, and survival. People are starting to connect the dots. Why is our water gone? Why can't we grow food on our own land? Why are our leaders silent while foreign firms build fences around our futures? This growing unrest, if left unchecked, could trigger a new global conflict, not fought with weapons, but through economic warfare, civil unrest, cyber disobedience, and fractured alliances. The same countries that silently built their empires through contracts may one day face a storm of broken trust and resistance they never saw coming. So where do we go from here? The world stands at a crossroads. On one side, a model of growth built on exploitation, secrecy, and silent takeovers. On the other side, a harder path built on fair trade, transparency, consent, and accountability. The richest countries must ask themselves, is domination the only path to stability? And the poorest countries must ask, how long will we trade sovereignty for survival? Real change will require stronger global regulations on foreign land and resource deals, more protection for indigenous rights and local farmers, tougher transparency laws on international contracts, global civil movements that refuse to be silent anymore, because economic colonialism, like all systems of control, only survives as long as we allow it to. The empires of today don't raise flags, they sign undias, they wear suits, not armor. They don't steal, they buy cheap, and the chains they forge. They're not made of iron, they're made of interest rates, legal terms, and quiet desperation. But chains, no matter how invisible, can still be broken if we dare to see them for what they are.